Today we're going to be installing rear stabilizer links or sway bar links on a 2007 Saturn Vue. The procedures in the video will work on pretty much any vehicle, and your stabilizer links may look a little different, but the principles are the same. If you want to see front end sway bar link installation and removal video, check out the link in the description below. I've already done that one. So the good thing about a high profile vehicle is that you don't need to jack it up to replace these. The only thing you have to make sure is that your tires are even and not sort of like this. Otherwise you'll put a higher load on the other side and your sway bar will sort of react with that, so when you install them they're not going to settle in properly. So just make sure your rear tires are level. And coming underneath the car, your sway bar links are right here. So it's this piece here. It connects onto the stabilizer bar here. This prevents unnecessary shaking when you're cornering and going around bumps, and gives sort of structural integrity to the car. Underneath, they're also bolted on right here with also a little insulator right there. So there's only 2 bolts to remove on these. It's a very simple job. What usually tends to go wrong with these is that the knuckle here separates from the bolt itself. They could even get snapped if they're long enough, or maybe they'll get rusted off and broken off. Usually you hear a clanking sound where they're gone, and rough vehicle stabilization. I'll show you that in this video right now so you can sort of help diagnose this. Now if you look under the car here, you can see I have a clear sort of gap in here, and this is where the sway bar has been sort of rattling against the link itself. It's pretty much shot in there, the nut won't go any tighter. So I think what has happened here is the boot has failed and whatever grease was in there has leaked out, and then it's ruined the joint in here. So it's only a matter of time before this sort of comes away, snaps off, and we're going to have a really shaky ride. I wouldn't recommend riding on this. You'll do further damage to the other suspension components, but it will get you home safely. Now when you're under here, I recommend just checking out the rest of the sway bar and suspension components. You can see the sway bars sort of attached to the body here with this insulator. It's good to check these insulators right here for damage. The slit on the back is perfectly normal. That's how the insulator gets on the sway bar in the first place. So these look pretty good, but it's a good idea to check your other components or you're down here just for looseness or anything like that. So your insulators on your coil springs, insulators where your shocks join on to the lower control arms, anything like that. Just have a good visual inspection. So to remove these from the car, you only need a couple basic tools, a set of Allen keys here, and a closed end wrench. It's as simple as that. In the end of the link here, you can see the Allen wrench socket right there, and you just stick it in there to keep it steady while you undo the nut with the wrench. So you can see the setup sort of here, and that's how we get the nut on and off. So the Allen wrench is just designed to keep this steady because it's a loose knuckle in this socket here. So the OEM Saturn ones, they have a 6-point Torx bit right there, which is required to sort of hold that steady. You can get an Allen wrench in there, size 4. It's not a great fit. The last thing you want to do is strip this. The 12-point Torx don't work, which I got a full set, so I don't have 6 points, so I'll show you a trick. You know those really crappy screwdrivers that come with all these bits right here? You know, everyone's got one, and luckily I got the bit here. It's a T27, it's hard to see there. Just slip that into a 6.5mm socket right there, a standard hex socket. So you just put that in the top there. See, it fits perfectly, and now you have yourself a T27 socket which just fits a 1/4 inch head there, and you can use that to hold it steady with your wrench right there. Put a bit of duct tape on there, it's really up to you, but yeah, this is how I've been doing it. So there we go. Yeah, the duct tape just stops it from falling out, but it has a nice tight fit. So if you don't have the tools, you can always work something out. So to remove these end links here, I recommend starting with this bolt first and then remove it from the sway bar, and then coming underneath and removing the bolt here and just pulling it out completely. So now we got that nut off there, we're just going to take the bottom one off there, then we can pull it all out. So now the old one's off here, just compare your parts, new against old. They're similar height and also similar depth. So we're pretty certain we got the correct part there. So we can go ahead and install this one now. So everything's taken off now. The sway bar is loose. It's a good chance to position it nice and central as well. I recommend loosening these. You don't have to. They're 15 millimeters. There's two there, two here, and that just allows you to move the sway bar from side to side. Depending on how bad your rattling was, it could have sort of moved to the left or right and stuff. So it's a good idea to sort of center that. So now both of them are from both sides. We can install the links, get it all nice and snug to spec, and then we can tighten these at the very end, and that way everything is centralized and everything like that. So what we're going to do now, we're going to get the end link here, and we're just going to pop it into the lower control arm there. So assembling the sway bar link for installation, very easy. So it starts with the washer, flat side up, and then the insulator, flat side down. So they sort of sandwich together. In this gap is where your lower control arm sits between these two insulators. And then again it's the reverse, so the insulator small end facing down, and then the washer flat side facing down, and then your nut goes on the end. So your lower control arm sits where my fingers are on there, and that's ready for installation just like that. Okay, we're now going to put the insulator and washer on from underneath. So now that's in there, it's 11 foot-pounds. If you don't have a torque wrench, then the insulator there, the rubber insulator, it shouldn't bulge too much. If you're doing both sides on this project, then do the other one as well at the same time. And that's before we tighten the Allen wrench bolts, so get both of these central. And again, if you're doing both of them at once, make sure the sway bar is nice and central. And again, you undo the bolts to do this and just move it across. Once it's nice and central, we need to position it evenly on these bolts here, these threads on both sides of the car. And once that's nice and even, we can tighten these bolts down on here. Now the nuts up here, they're 35 foot-pounds. Just get them nice and even on each side. Again, if you're doing both sides at once, tighten them down evenly. Once everything's nice and snug and even, tighten back down these bolts. They're 52 foot-pounds. And that is how to replace rear stabilizer links on almost any vehicle out there. Thanks for watching.